Today, I'm going to be ranking every single builder-based troop in Clash of Clans from best to worst. First up, we have the Raged Barbarian. Now, a lot of players think this troop is trash. I used to think it was pretty bad too. I never used it, but once I maxed it out and the meta started evolving, Raged Barbarians have one really good usage, which is testing for traps, testing for Teslas, and your cannon cart attacks. If you get one camp of Raged Barbarians, and you place those in front of your cannon carts, you can find every single trap, and they can be incredibly useful for that situation, which is why I'm going to put these in the B tier. They're not insane, they're not S tier or A. You can't use them every single time, and when you do use them, you're just using a camp of them, but man, they can be pretty insane. Next up, Sneaky Archers. So this troop pretty similar to the Rage Barbarian. You can use them to test for traps, test for Teslas, especially in your cannon cart attacks. Both of these troops work amazing with cannon carts, but something that they have on top of the Barbarians is they can shoot over walls, so you can snipe out those defenses behind walls. There's a few more uses with archers than Barbarians, so I'm going to put these in B tier as well. However, just a little bit higher up than Barbarians because they can be a little bit more useful. You can get some more use out of them. Boxer Giants. So this troop is pretty insane when you use it correctly. When you pair the giant with a Pekka attack and you put your giant in front and it's tanking 4, 5, maybe 6 defenses, it gets insane value. It can tank so much damage. It has quite a few hit points, but you pair that with its ability where it's invincible and can just stay alive for so long. The giant can get crazy value. It also works with electrified wizards. They're a better tank a lot of times than Pekkas because they can just stay alive for so much longer. So I'm putting the giant in the A tier because it's pretty insane. It's not S tier. You can't use it on its own and do something crazy, but it's really good. It's A tier. Baby Dragon. This, I'm sure you guys already know where this is going. This is for sure going in the S tier. This troop is insane. In my opinion, this is probably the best troop to max out when you're brand new, Builder Hall 10, and you need one troop maxed. Go for the Baby Dragon because you can do attacks with all baby dragons and destroy every single base, especially if they're not maxed out. The baby dragon ability can absolutely crush defenses. 2 baby dragon abilities can take out almost any defense, any building. There are some where you need 3 baby dragon abilities, but if you pair that with, let's say, some extra splash damage from the battlecopter, these baby dragons can absolutely wreck, and you can use them in combination with a bunch of other troops. They work with cannon carts. I mean, they can work with beta minions, Pekka attacks, you throw them in on the backside. Baby dragons can work pretty much anywhere, and they also work well on their own. So S tier troop by far. Next up is the beta minion. So this troop here, it can get some value. It's not horrible. Some players never use it. I personally use it a little bit, but I'm not too great with them. However, they can get some value. Best thing about the beta minion is its ability to shoot over walls from a distance. So let's say in cannon cart attacks where you're trying to shoot a defense over the wall, but your archers can't reach it. Your cannon carts, it's an archer tower, so your archer tower can shoot down your cannon cart. That's when the beta minion comes into play. You can use 2 or 3 beta minions and snipe pretty much any defense, especially the low hit point defenses, if your minion just isn't getting destroyed by a bunch of air damage. But that's pretty much the only use. You can't use it really in any other top meta strategies at the top of the leaderboard you see running. So beta minion is going into the C tier. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my rankings. I know there's a lot of controversy over some of these troops, so I want to hear what you guys have to say. And next up is the Bomber. So the Bomber, this troop is pretty insane. Pretty much, I only use a Bomber in Pekka attacks or attacks where I need to get open the walls and I have giant, some kind of tanky ground troop. But when you do this correctly, when you use the Bomber ability correctly, it's insane. The Bomber, one Bomber on its own, you pop its ability, it can one-shot pretty much every wall that you need to. A single Bomber can open up entire bases, and sometimes you can use 2 Bombers and open up the entire base, which is perfect for Pekka attacks. It's perfect for ground attacks. The Bomber can get a ton of value, and it also has a pretty substantial amount of hit points. It can tank quite a few shots. At the same time, it also puts out some decent damage, and it's splash damage. So Bomber's just a pretty crazy troop. This is going in the A tier, but in front of the Giant. Let's see if I can move that. Is it moving? There we go. In front of the Giant, because it can get a little bit more value than the Giant. I find myself using Bombers more than Giants. A tier for sure. Cannon Carts, probably the most versatile troop in the game and the strongest, or one of the strongest, depends how you view it. Cannon Carts are crazy. These are for sure going in the S tier in front of Baby Dragon, because Cannon Carts are just so versatile. You can use them with any army. You can do armies completely full of Cannon Carts. I mean, 2 Cannon Carts together, if you put them together and you put them in the mortar mode, they can single-handedly snipe out pretty much any defense in the game. Cannon Carts are so strong. You can use them in stage 1, stage 2. Let's say you get to the stage 2 attack and you have no troops alive. If you just bring 2 Cannon Carts in your reinforcement camps, you can easily save and get at least like a 5-star on the attack with just 2 Cannon Carts. This is by far an S tier troop, probably the best troop in the game in my opinion. They're insane. Next troop. Onto the Night Witch. This is a horrible troop. The Night Witch needs a rework. I'm sure you guys know where I'm going to rank this. Some of you might disagree, because some of you do like to use Night Witches, throw in a bunch of them in your army, and you might be able to beat the base. But at the top of the leaderboards and overall in the meta, Night Witch is a D tier. This troop needs a rework. I mean, it dies super easily to traps, defenses. When you use its ability, it spawns out some bats, which are helpful, and they're raged up. However, they do not stay raged. So its ability is just kind of trash in my opinion. You don't get really any value from it, especially if a roaster or air bomb is hitting those bats. They're all dead, and they just don't even stay raged for more than a few seconds. They die out pretty quickly. Night Witch, bad troop. It needs a buff. It needs something going on with it. It's D tier. Hog Gliders. These are a solid troop. They can be pretty useful sometimes when you need to stun defenses. You can use them in quite a few different combinations. For example, you can use a Giant, a Bomber, and a Pekka as like a little kill squad, and then you use the rest of your camps as Hog Gliders on the back end, and they can just stun up a bunch of defenses. Their main weakness, I would say, are crushers or just high DPS buildings like double cannons or mega Teslas when they're not stunned, because they will shred through your Hog Gliders. But Hog Gliders are still a solid troop. A lot of top players are using them. They're not very popular, but they are a solid troop, which is why I'm putting them in the A tier, but behind Giant and Bomber, just because they're not quite as strong, but they're still a strong troop. A tier, definitely. Onto the Electrofire Wizard, another solid troop, but it can only be used against bases where it gets huge value when you see those clumped up buildings. So you can take advantage of its chain ability and just chain through all of those defenses. However, a lot of the meta bases are designed with buildings spread apart, or just all the defenses perfectly spread, so there's full coverage of the base, and all those bases, I mean, it's pretty hard to get good value with your Electrofire Wizards, but they're still such a strong troop, especially if the base has a weakness against it, which is why I'm putting them in the B tier, but behind Archers and Rage Barbarians, just because they're not quite as versatile. Normally, I'm only able to use them in maybe 1 out of every 10 attacks on a base that's weak to them, so not super versatile, but still a good troop. That is a B tier. Onto the dropship. In my opinion, this with Night Witches, these are the 2 worst troops in the game. The dropship is just pretty bad. I mean, it deals very little damage. It doesn't have enough HP. The ability is cool. It breaks walls, but it's useless most of the time because this is an air troop. So its ability of breaking walls pretty much makes you want to use it with ground troops. But if you're using ground troops and you have the dropship in, then the dropship is just going to die. There's always so much air defense on bases. It needs a rework, or at least a buff like the Night Witch. It needs some more hit points, maybe some more damage, or just an ability rework. I like the troop concept. I like how the ability breaks walls. It's just not very strong. This is by far D tier, and it's the worst troop in the game. Finally, we have the Power Pekkas. Very strong troop right here. If you guys know what I like to do, I always go Pekkas. This troop is crazy. It has super high hit points, high damage. Its ability is OP. If you have 2 Pekkas and both of their abilities, You pop those abilities and they can take down any building, any defense, and if they're clumped up, they can take down multiple buildings. If the buildings are clumped up, they can take them all down. Power Pekkas are very strong. They have pretty much no weakness. The only weakness they have are traps and Teslas, but you can still work around them. So these are going in the S tier, right in front of baby dragons, but behind cannon carts. They're very solid, but not quite on the same level as cannon carts. Now, if you guys are looking at this list, this is a pretty good, in general, upgrade order for troops to max out. If you're wondering which troops to upgrade, these S tier troops are definitely your go-to troops to upgrade, followed by your A tier, B tier, and then C and D. I don't even recommend touching these unless you have the resources for it. So that's going to wrap it up for the video. Make sure to drop a like if you enjoyed and comment if you agree with my rankings at all. I really want to hear what you guys have to say, and I'll see you on the next one.